Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I have a great question that is going to smack you right between the eyes this week for our starting question. And I think this is so cool. And the question is, are you a client magnet? That is just like such a cool question. As soon as I found that, I was like wrestling with it. My initial answer was, oh, absolutely. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I need some work. So I had to find out who asked that question. And I actually found it. It's Dr. Ginger Bratzel. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Thanks for having me, and good morning and good day to everybody who's here.
Absolutely. We're going to have a great time. You totally hit me between the eyes with that question. So, tell me a little bit about what your work and what's going on in your world.
Well, I work with healthcare professionals, service-based professionals, small businesses who, the big question is, if I just had more clients, if I just had more patients, if I just had more customers, all my problems will go away. And so that's always the first question they answer. Now, on the surface, that seems like an easy answer. And so we help them get over that barrier. So it's part of a whole system. We help them find the people they need, but just getting them is one thing, but we got to keep them and keep coming back and working that through.
That's awesome. So, do you think that more clients equals success for a lot of the people that you're working with?
Well, I demonstrate this in the principle when someone says, I just need this. And I said, great. Okay, I have a van. I'm going to drive around your local area and I'm going to put 1,000 people in that van and I'm going to drop them on your doorstep. Are you ready to see all of them? And they're like, no, I don't have enough people. No, I don't think so. I'll call their office. They don't answer the phone. So, well, you know what? That's part of the problem, but there's some other stuff going on. So it's not always that. You need a steady flow of people coming in because there's always attrition. People have to leave, people move, you finish with clients, but you have to have systems to keep them in the whole process too.
And so I guess that's a great place to start is there's no simple answer. There's no magic bullet. We try every week to find the magic bullet. I've searched the world and I can say I haven't found it. So I don't know, Ginger, if you found it, but I think it's great to have a desire to have more clients. I think every entrepreneur, that's the driving force for them. But like you said, if there isn't some system or some process, some path for them to be able to be taken down once they expressed an interest, I think that that's where we tend to do them a disservice. So I appreciate that, we're starting at that spot. So everybody probably listening, Ginger, wants more clients. So is there any simple things that you have found that, to answer that question, or is it a more, a deeper, longer answer than just like, here it is, do this and life will be great?
Well, we with anything in life, we want the simple answer. And you talked about the magic bullet. When I lecture, I have a bullet with me. I carry it with me. And I said, you want the magic bullet? It's right here. I'll set it here. But if you want help with your business, if you want the solution to your problems, let's dig a little deeper. So it's just like weight loss. It took you a while to get there, it's going to take a while to get it off, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. It's minor steps done in a consistent basis with checks and balances. And that's what most people don't have is accountability. They don't have tracking going on place. So, for instance, they'll say, I've tried this marketing, we'll talk about silver bullets. You say, I tried X, they'll name whatever it is.
Sure.
And the customers I got, the clients I got, the patients I got were no good. And I said, really, tell me more. Well, they didn't buy from me. They didn't schedule. And so we go through and I break it down at each part of the system. There is a objective. So when we put marketing out, all we want them to do is take the next step. That's the only goal of marketing. It's to get them to call, to text, whatever we need. Now, once we get them in our offices or we have that consultation with them or you're on a Zoom with them, that is a different part of the funnel. It's not marketing anymore. It's about conversion. It's about management. It's about systems to do the heavy lifting. So it's all got to go together. And then the third part that we always talk to our clients about, we call it the 3 M's. So we talked about marketing, we talked about management, which is the systems. And the last one is our mindset. And you talk a lot about that with your positivity. If you do not have a growing mindset, if you're not willing to professionally work on yourself and personally work on yourself, that business is never going to get out of that rut. And sometimes that's the hardest one for a lot of people. And the marketing really ends up being the easiest.
Well, so if in case you didn't hear, all those breaks just went on here, Ginger. Everyone was excited with M number one, marketing. Yes, yes, yes. I'll spend money to make money all day long. All the entrepreneurs are in that cheering section. They're loving that. They love the management side of it. Let's make a system. But now you start talking about mindset, and now it's like, this is where kind of all of a sudden it gets crickets and we get a little nervous here. So if you're listening, it's okay. Don't disconnect right here. Okay.
Breathe.
Yes. Just breathe. You'll be fine. We're with a doctor, so she's going to take care of you if there's any issues. Okay. But I think this is so important because I run into a lot of entrepreneurs around the country that they tend to want to blame, not even blame, but they kind of point to, I'm going to use that, it's a better word. They point to their team.
Right.
Or they point to the customer, or they point to the government, or they point to the economy. I mean, they always are looking outward at trying to find fault or blame, I guess, trying to peg this on somebody else. And I love the fact that we're starting with you. We're starting with that leader. And I think that's so helpful to have that in that 3 M's, because you can get a great marketing campaign, you can have a great path to then convert those people. But if your mindset isn't in alignment with that, it's just a matter of time before that comes off the tracks. Would you agree?
Right. Yes, 100%. Because like you said, it's easier to put it on somebody else. It's like when I bring a client in, they said, I don't need any help. I'm good. I just need you to fix my team. And well, that team is looking for you to be that leader. They want to make sure you're invested in it, because it just doesn't, it's not congruent across everything you do. Your clients, your patients, your customers smell it and they don't even know it. Your team knows it. They're not going to follow up because you're not really invested in it. But when you show them, you take that first step and say, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable and I'm going to be in this process. My live workshops, I have a banner. So if I'm at a hotel, if I'm speaking for somebody else, I put it on the wall and it says, there is no professional growth without personal growth first. And so if you're not committed to doing that, do not waste your time on marketing. Do not waste your time on buying software or anything else, or training anybody else. It's got to start with the top.
And that's so, okay. So there's like 3 people left listening here, Ginger. Okay. You talked about accountability. So a bunch of people jumped off. Now you're talking vulnerability. I mean, we try and, interweave these into our life every week on the podcast, because again, it's so helpful. I mean, I see teams that watch the leader, and when the leader does something that isn't necessarily in alignment with the company culture or the company goals or vision, it gives the license to the rest of the group to be like, well, why am I doing this when the leader's not doing that?
Right.
So I tend to ask the question, and my next book I'm working on is about business blind spots. And so it's a situation where I always ask the question, is this a blind spot that maybe the leaders don't have, or that the leaders have that they don't know something's going on? Or are they literally understanding it, but bucking that, because they can? So I don't know on your side if you're seeing one or the other, being more prevalent.
I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to them that they're not maliciously doing this and choosing not to do it. Because, my training, I started my career as a dentist, and they told me to build a business, you just have to be a good dentist. And everything was put on the dentistry. They told me if I wanted to grow, I got to buy more equipment. I've got to get more training. I've got to get this fancy office. And there was just this snowball that just kept going and going. And this huge overhead came up. And what happened at the bottom of it is I didn't change. So I had to come back to me. And it was not, even when I talk about marketing, it had to be from the mindset, I was there to help these people, but that was not getting through. So what can I do to really connect with them? What do I need to change first to have those conversations to help them get where they want to be? And they might not even know that. Right. So it really, the changes came, and I can't tell you how quickly it changed to my pocketbook, into my life, when I flipped that switch and said, it's got to be me. And so my marketing message changed because I was thinking about it clearly. I was talking to my team better because I had an investment into what we were doing. It was my company and they were looking at me. And so, and also to put this back on the team members, you said, you know, they fall off the horse and they're not following up. I don't think they even intentionally mean to do it. They're just like, why should I? Because they're not. It's in their head. So they just kind of get in those bad habits again. It's too easy.
Right. Yeah. Well, and Gallup said that, we talk about this all the time. Gallup's polls every year show that about 2 out of 3 of our employees show up every day not engaged in their job. You know, and it's easy to, you know, look at a group of 10. If your group is 10 and you think, oh my gosh, you know, 6.7 of these people are not engaged, and then it's easy to blame and to start pointing fingers. You know, again, as a leader, I've led my whole life, so I have to actually flip that around and say, why, you know, what have I done wrong that they're not engaged? What have I done? Now, some of people are just going to live life not engaged.
Right.
Not much you can do about that. You know, I think there's plenty of people, though, that under the right circumstances and the right environment, they're going to flourish, you know, and so I think that's on us as leaders. So I really appreciate that perspective.
I appreciate you sharing your insight on it because it is a very important part. I don't think it's talked about. And actually, I think it gets poo-pooed because it's woo-woo to a lot of people.
Yep.
And it feels like it's separate than business, and it's so integral.
Yeah. Well, we all think of sitting around a campfire, get out the guitar and sing Kumbaya. That becomes,
That's right.
Right. That's what everybody thinks of when we talk about company culture. Well, you know, the younger generation, you know, coming up right now, they don't understand Kumbaya. They don't understand what that even is. So it's one of those deals where that's just kind of normal for them. If we don't take an active role in their life, they're going to find a company that will. So it kind of almost forces us into this, you know, change. And I think obviously entrepreneurs have a hard time changing for the most part. So I get it. I get that this is hard. And that's why we bring people like you on each week to help us with that, because, you know, I want to be a client magnet, go all the way back to the beginning. I want to be a client magnet. I realize that I have a team around me that if I'm a magnet and they are a detraction, that's going to be a problem. And that's really what I got out of when I wrote my book. We talked about the intersection between, you know, the team strength and then the customer's experience. So you can't really have, the research shows you can't really have a strong team and giving a weak experience, just like you really can't have a weak team giving a strong experience.
Right.
So, you know, so yeah, I think it, unfortunately for us as leaders, you know, Ginger, it all starts with us. I mean, it just does. And the earlier you get that, the better, right?
Right, right. And so I mean, when you hire, you want to hire people that you talk about culture, but you have to nurture them along the way because people have lives. You know, we're living in a post-pandemic world. There's a lot of distractions, and if we're not spending time investing back into that culture and giving our people the reinforcement and the help that they need to do their job and support them, because, and I think again, back to that transparency, is like, it's okay to say, guys, I know you're having a hard time with this because I'm having a hard time with this, and we're going to figure this out together. And it's not always unicorns and puppy dog tails. There is rough spots on it. But again, if they know you're in it for the long haul and you're always invested in trying to do that. My team, sometimes I laugh at this. We have that relationship. You say, you know what? You need to get on a plane and go to a course. And that's code word for go work on yourself. You come back energized. You come back motivated. You're going to be a better leader to us. We need you to do those things. And so I think reading's a part of that, being a constant learner. You know, I have a doctorate degree and I have more training in marketing and professional development and leadership than I do ever in the doctor of dentistry. Sure. So it's got to be there for it. So you're never done with what you're doing, especially when you're leading a company.
Well, you hit the trifecta. So you're the first one in almost 100 episodes, Ginger, to hit all three. Now we have no listeners because now you just added transparency. Okay. So now it's just you and me because everyone else is like, oh my gosh, accountability, vulnerability, transparency. This is just too much. But no, I appreciate that because, we've all probably worked for somebody or watched it where they weren't any of these. There was no accountability for them. Now they may have accountability you to death, but they had none. And
Back.
then there was no vulnerability. Nobody mentioned anything. You could be on your deathbed and you're expected to be in the office, and too bad. My dad would say, rub some dirt on it. Why are you crying, Dave? As a little kid, rub some dirt on it, get back in there, and so the vulnerability and transparency. I mean, these are really like big topics in leadership today. And I hope that it's rubbing off on us as leaders to kind of test the waters a little bit. But I wanted to ask something for way off topic, but you brought up a question when you were talking about your training. So you went through all this work to become a dentist, and then was there much business training in that path, or were they purely training you on the skill? And then they just made the assumption that somewhere in your life you would pick up this business side of it.
Well, they didn't even expect you to pick up. So when they treat you in dental school, it is fully technical. You're
Okay.
cutting, you're drilling, you're filling. They don't even teach you about billing because they assume somebody's going to come along and pick up your sorry butt and take care of you. And there's going to be this magical person sitting around who's going to do it. And so when you do those things, when you give your power away for your business to somebody else, it becomes their business.
Sure.
And you lose your vision, and they don't know why you went into it. But no, they don't spend a lot of time on that. Now, I was fortunate to get some education on that on the side because I just felt like I was lacking that. Yep. But was I equipped to run a business the day I walked out? No, because they taught us if you were just good at dentistry,
yep,
you build it and they will come.
Yeah.
And that was the farthest thing from the truth.
That's so crazy because I see that in so many different places in this world. And the concept for people, we encourage people to, explore your entrepreneurial spirit, explore if you, want to actually, go down that road. I did a podcast recently and the guy said 70% of Americans wish that they own their own business. Mm-hmm. And it was like, wow, but only 7% actually do. So there's this like huge disparity. So there's all these people that wish that they were there. But yet there's nowhere. Where do they go? Where do they go? Right. I mean, there's so few entrepreneurial classes being taught. And you just proved the point. In all your schooling, their expectation was, you can do the best job as a dentist, and you could be the best dentist in the world and be out of business because you don't know how to do any of the ancillary stuff. So, I mean, getting more clients is a great place to start, but boy, if you don't have, like you said, a path, if you don't have that management piece, you're done. So I appreciate that because I, as an outsider, would have thought that they would have showed you how to run a successful business. There would have been something somewhere, in that situation.
Right. And they just cram a lot in there, and there's just so much to learn. That's what it is. And so if you're not invested into it, people before me and into my age, if you wanted to be a dentist, you had to own your own business. Well, now we're in the age of corporate care. So there's businesses that know nothing about dentistry, but they know how to do overhead and they know how to hire and they know HR. And so they hire dentists and put them in a dental environment. And so you get part of your power away there, but you're just truly doing the dentistry part. So, for me, I went to dental school because I wanted to be a business owner, not because I love teeth.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, so it worked out for me. I was always on this entrepreneur path. Yep. But for a lot of people, like, no, I just want to cut teeth. And, and also when you think about the focus, when we look at teeth, And so a lot of engineers are this way too. We are technical and minutia, and you're looking at fractions of a millimeter. And if you live in that world, it's hard
Yeah,
to see this world.
sure.
And that's what you've got to see to run a business. So it's very difficult for them. And
Yeah.
then another point I want to make, and somebody might relate to this. They told us if you weren't good at that and you were failing, it was just you. They never gave you any resources or associations where you were with somebody else. Because when you went to a dental meeting, you didn't tell anyone you were struggling. You had to suck it up, and
Mm,
everyone lied. They were all
that's
telling you about how great it was. And so,
sure.
for a lot of people in business, you don't know you're doing it, but doing this and helping other businesses, I can tell you, there's thousands of great people who are technically
Yep.
gifted, wonderful people, and close the door every day.
Yep. Wow. Well, and that's really where you and I come in, right? I mean, it's crazy to me to when people come up to me and say, I don't need a coach. I don't need a coach, right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm not saying that you do. People ask the question, why would I want to hire you? And I'm like, I don't know if you would. I mean, let's
Right.
just, let's talk this through a little bit. But the interesting thing is I kind of go back to somebody like Tiger Woods and think to myself, well, if Tiger Woods has a half a dozen coaches around him so that he can be the absolute best in the world, there's maybe something to that
Right.
concept. And it goes back to your word that made half of our audience leave, was the accountability piece, right? I
Mhm.
mean, who are entrepreneurs accountable to if not an outside coach? I mean, because all of a sudden, if you're not extremely well disciplined, you don't have to work today, you don't have to make any money today, you don't have to call that
Right.
customer back today, you don't have to engage that marketing campaign. I mean, you don't have to do anything. That's the cool part of owning your business, right? But I tell you, the bank eventually wants to get paid back or whatever, the bills are eventually there. So, did you find that hard for yourself for the accountability? Was that tough for you starting in a school, going into that, and then kind of jumping into business? Was that a tough transition for you?
Well, in school, you're accountable to your grades, and there's requirements. You have that checklist you're going through. Then all of a sudden you're out in the world and you're like, I've got to do this and I want to do this, but I don't have all the tools, and I'm so naive. I don't even know all the tools that I need. When I struggled, for me, it was 7 years
Okay.
until I started looking at things differently. And at that same time, when my bank count went up, my focus was different. I was working on me. I started working with a coach myself, my first coach. Things turned around really, really quickly. So, when I saw those results, that I had someone that knew a little bit more than me and could guide me through these things, it really helped that. And they knew a lot more than me. And so
Yeah.
it's when you're on a ladder or a step, it's hard to imagine what the view is going to be at the top. You just got to get to that next step. And
Sure.
so when you get there and you accept that, and that's what I had problems with a lot of professionals, and being one, I can say that they have to know the whole thing before they start. And I have to reassure them, you are not capable of knowing. Even if I gave you pictures, you would not understand. You've
Yeah.
got to go through each of those phases to get there, and you will get more insight and more confidence as you go.
Yeah. Well, and so I spend time in San Diego, and I have family there, and there's a mountain there that takes about 30 minutes to walk up. 45. I should be real here. I don't run like I used to. So and it takes like 45 minutes. And when you pull up and look at that mountain, you look up at the top and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get to the top? The first time I was like, how am I going to get there? That looks like doesn't look possible. And there's a path. And so you just start going and you walk, you're looking, at where your feet are, because it's kind of rocky. And so before you know it, you're halfway up and you can look back. I agree 100% with what you're saying. Once you've made it to the top, once you've made that path, it's a lot easier than to go
Right.
back the second time, right? And I
Right.
think that's the cool part is if you have somebody on that journey with you that's done that before, they already know, well, hey, around this bend, there's going to be this problem. You got to watch out. This is extra slippery, whatever it is. So I think that's why it's so helpful to have that accountability. Maybe it's a friend. I mean, I would probably not have, I wouldn't discourage it from being a spouse, because that can, that cannot end well. But, I think from a marketing perspective, that's where you come in and come alongside people. And my simple brain says marketing gets the phone to ring, and
Right.
then sales takes it from there once the phone rings. So I tend to focus on once the phone rings, and you tend to focus on getting the phone to ring, if I'm in simple terms.
Well,
So
I start with that phone to get to ring, but then we talk about it because it's a conversion process. Like I can bring them down those 1,000 people in the van,
sure,
but they think they're really good at what they do. And then I said, let's look at those numbers. So we'll look at conversion, what they're comfortable. Again, that's back to our heads. People have glass ceilings on themselves and they'll only push themselves this far. And I was like, no, you could do more. You can pull that filter off and do that. So it's about completing it. And then you got to feel good about what you're doing. And again, that's part of that mindset and giving yourself the joy in what you're doing. You're not doing it for money, and
sure.
money's the reward. And marketing's not something we do to somebody. It's something we do for somebody. They have a need or want. We have to talk that language so we can pull that out and give them permission to go through and have that process and go through that experience.
So you used the word conversion a couple times. So why don't you unpack that for us a little bit? I think there's probably some really good information there for people listening. What is that? What does conversion in your world look like?
Well, conversion, it happens at each stage. So conversions, like how many people at the beginning, how many people click the website
Okay.
or called who actually come in or makes that first contact. So I'll look at there. So if there's not a very good conversion point there, we've got something broken in that system. So we're going to go back and look at phone scripts. We're going to look at maybe the piece that you're following up. Maybe it was the time it took you to answer the phone or to get back with them. So we're going to alleviate those. And then the second conversion is they actually come in, you talk to them about their needs, their wants, their desires. So is it treatment? Is it a business proposal? Is it a project? And you're having a lot of these initial consultations, but they don't turn into anything. What is broken down in that process? We're going to look at conversion there. Now, here's the gist of it. You and I know it, and a lot of people do, but they won't admit it. You can't convert 100% of people. We know that. But people, when I ask them, are you good about getting people? They said, if you can get them in the door, I can convert them. That's what they'll tell me. And I said, really? And so we'll look at the numbers and they're converting them at 10%. I'm like, that's not really good. It's because they weren't tracking it. It's about that accountability. And then also once people start, how many people finish the process? So there's conversions along all over that path. So we can break it down in each step. It's like who came into that funnel, who got to the next step. That's what I'm talking about in conversion.
Gotcha. And so now I'm going to bring back what you said before, because I think what was really important about this is what you said is that when you look at your conversion, you have to look inwardly. You're looking internally. It's again so easy to say, well, we didn't want that lead anyway. That's like, if I've heard that once, I've heard that 1,000 times.
They're a bad lead.
Ginger, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're not working for them, Ginger. This wouldn't have been a mess, right? Well, how come you thought it was fantastic at the beginning, and is only once they said no that they magically turned into a horrible person, right? So,
right.
I don't buy that, but I think go back to your vulnerability and transparency. If you business owner listening right now, if you're not willing to look inwardly, if your conversion rate is that 10%, let's say, and again, conversion can be anything. So simple, 10 people inquire about your business and you convert one into a customer. If that's the simple conversion that we're talking about, if that's your rate and you want to find ways to get to 2, I mean, just imagine that doubles your sales in certain right? To go from 1 in 10 to 2 in 10, you just doubled your sales. Well, you can't blame and look outwardly. I really appreciate looking inwardly. So it sounds like you spend a lot of time in that management spot for somebody if they're struggling with low conversion.
Right. Because they might have like I might take it on and I do the conversion. If I'm not the best at it, I have other people in my business who can do that.
Sure.
And they might just naturally have that skill set. We hire for that skill set. So they need to be talking. Maybe they haven't had enough training, or maybe we haven't. And this is the big thing I find about businesses. you're never done training. So you can train and then you retrain and then you retrain again, because we all get off in bad habits. We slip a little bit and we forget what was going on. So it's really important to have those conversations, to have the team on there. And it's never one and done. It's not like, hey, I got the certificate on phone, I never have to do phone training again. No, it's something we always have to refresh.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Click, check that off next. Yeah. That's crazy. And I think that we don't, as business owners, I don't think we invest enough time and energy in that training spot.
Right.
Because training doesn't equal ROI. Training
Right.
doesn't equal dollars in my pocket. Right. So it's, it's kind of like, you can live another year with your roof without putting a new roof on. You can live another year with that old beat up car, because you just keep kicking that down the road. And yeah, I made another X number of dollars, or I didn't have to spend money on my roof this month. Those are easier to justify than not training your team. I mean, your team is your lifeline of that. And, I loved one of the things on your website. It says, is what worked in the past not working now?
Yes.
So I think that's a really good question. How do you help people, with that concept? Because I've heard many people say, this is just the way we do it around here. Man, we've been doing this forever. Grandpa did it this way. Ginger, I can't change what Grandpa started, right? What do you say to those people when they have that kind of thought process?
Well, and for a lot of people, that's how it was. But I mean, all of us undeniably cannot ignore the fact that the world has changed. We have to do business differently. We have been forced in that situation. And so if you don't adapt, and I hate that word pivot, but that's what it is. If you don't adapt and change, people's psychology is different. And that's what marketing is. It's not some magic words. It is, or a logo. It is talking to people where you make that psychological connection to them. And so the psychology of your prospect has changed. They have different things on their plate. Their life is a lot more complicated. And if you don't change the way you're doing business now, you will not survive. You'll be a dinosaur. And we're seeing that, people have to change not only the way they interact, but sometimes the services they offer. It's just not up to date. It's not relevant to the situation now.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you. That word pivot's been way, beat to death. So I think about it from an adaptation perspective. And I think about a chameleon, and let's say in 2015, you were red and your customer was red. And now 2022, we're, in a situation where it's going to be, if your customer's green, you better be green. And if you're going to try and make your customer turn red because you're staying red, because that's the way you always did it, then you know what? I'm going to say, yeah, you should join Kodak, and you should join Kmart and Sears and JC Penney's and these big monsters, Blockbuster, that just had that same thought process. I'm not changing. I'm going to change my customer. And it obviously was not very successful. So you can do it that way, but I don't think your tenure is going to be nearly as long as if you adapt to that customer. Is that one of the simple ways that you can be a client magnet here in this case, Ginger, is by adapting to what the customer needs?
Well, I think first of all, the simplest way is you really need to understand your customer. And most people think they do. And I mean, I want to understand my customer. I want to first, and I think the easiest way for any business, I'll give the simplest tip, is to go out and with your team, write down 5 to 10 of your best customers.
Yep.
Just their names. I don't care anything else about them. And then when we put John down, well, what makes John great? Well, this is what we like about John. He never gives us a hassle. He can be here at any time. He never worries about money. He's so nice to us. Okay, what does John do? What is John's life like? Well, we know where John lives. We know if John's married or has kids. We know what industry he's in. And then we move on to the next one, is Mary. And so we find some similarities. Mary's got some of these things in common too. Sure. And so by going and looking what we already have good right under our nose, if we could clone them, I would take 100 Johns. I would take 100 Marys and making it happen. That's the easiest one, because everyone's off. I need to go tap this market.
Yeah.
What about the market you've already attracted? There is some kind of symmetry there and attraction already because you got a John and a Mary.
Yep.
And how can we clone those and go and talk to more of those kind of people?
Well, and it's 7 times easier to sell something to an existing customer than to find a new one. So maybe, it's in between there where it's 3.5 times easier to sell to John too, where it's,
Birds of a feather.
you have the avatar already laid out, you know what this is. Now we just have to go find more John twos. So fortunately for you, everybody had teeth, right? So I mean,
No,
technically,
no.
well, I guess, right? But everybody had a mouth, let's put it that way. I
But they
mean,
didn't care about their teeth. I mean,
yeah,
they care about hunting season or,
yeah,
your competition. When we talk in dentistry, it's not another dentist down the street. It is the jet ski that they want. It's a new truck they want. It's,
yeah.
it's what their value system is very different.
Yes. Yeah, that's oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a great point. And if you're listening and somebody says, who's your biggest competition? I think that's really so narrow-minded to think of somebody within your industry. And, I worked with a window manufacturer and we asked, what's the biggest competition? And they kept, mentioning other brands. And
Apple
I'm
to
like,
Apple.
realistically, I think the bigger competition is Corian or Quartz or, things where people are going to spend money on those things rather than on your product. So I think that's a brilliant place to, interject this piece for people listening that think about your competition. It might not be, XYZ company because they do the same thing that you do. It's somebody vying for the same dollars that you're vying for. And again, the dentist, okay, full disclosure, I'd way more rather have a jet ski than
Yes.
a root canal. But, I mean, that's just how life is. But, I think that you bring up that's a great point that you bring up. So there's so much here. Tell me, as we start to come in for a landing, do you see any trends or things in coming up for 2022 from a marketing perspective that we as business owners and entrepreneurs need to be, on the lookout for?
Sure. Again, coming from this post-pandemic, we were giving power to many things outside of our control. And again, that's just the psychology. We've already unraveled how we like to do that.
Mhm.
But, we're using technology to replace people and automation. I could send an email versus make a phone call. With this trend and people are getting back out in the world, we still want human connection. And so we let technology replace that connection. That's where people are going to find they're not succeeding. They want to
Okay.
turn everything over to social media. We still got to have those personal connections and making that happen. So as far as trends, we can use automation, but it's got to be to make a personal connection. So like I still think video is going to be very, very important. We're doing a podcast, we're recording it right now. We could have done audio.
Yep.
But there is something to be said on being able to see somebody. I don't want a picture of somebody when I can hear them talk and I can see their gestures. It's just a whole different connection level.
Sure.
After the fact, I could send them a letter, I could send them an email, or I could send them a personal video. I think video is a really valuable component, but it's got to be on the personal level and it's got any opportunity. So if we can use technology to personalize stuff, we can do that. And so if we had another 2 hours, I'd tell you some tricks on that and resources, but
Sounds
don't
like
look
a
for the
follow-up episode. All right.
don't look for that shiny object that's going to do the work for you. You still have got to connect to people as long as you're still selling to people. And even your business to business, you have to be on that personal level. And I think people need to keep that in mind. So, we're seeing trends with Facebook changing where it was really a powerhouse in the past. Facebook advertising, we're seeing less and less of that. We're still playing with it. But I'm not seeing the growth that we used to see. And so, instead of trying to speak to thousands of people, maybe we're going to be talking to 10 key people that can make bigger decisions.
Wow. So I heard find new ways to connect. That's what I heard from that. So again, that's the challenge for you listening, is to really find new ways to connect with your existing clients and future clients, because if you don't, somebody's going to, whether it's your competition or somebody outside of your, industry, that then again draws them away from you because they're spending their money in other areas. So that's awesome. So 2 questions, Ginger, and then I'm going to let you go. And maybe we already did this one, but what would your tip of the week be for anyone listening?
Well, I'm going to go back to that one. I think you need to sit down with your team, and I need you to identify your 5 or your 10 top customers, clients, or patients, and identify everything about them. We'll call them an avatar, but I call them my board of directors. These are the people that are going to lead my company if I could have more like them. So that's one of the hints to do. I think that's key. It's got to start with there, because if you know who you're talking to, you know how to market to them, you know what to say, you know where to put the marketing, you know how to treat them once they come in the office. It takes a lot of stress off your life when you have that information.
Well, I'll tell you, for one of the businesses that I owned in my previous life, we did what we called the CAC, which was the Customer Advisory Council. And we had 10 people that we invited in on a consistent basis, and they helped us with our company. They helped us, we had short-term goals, we had long-term goals, we had medium-term goals. I mean, we really allowed them. It was an honor for them to come in on their end. It was an honor for us to invest. I mean, and this was like a half a day deal once a quarter, and it was really helpful, for us. But that's so cool if you have that type of connection with your customer. And if you don't, then that's where, Ginger said, find new ways to connect. Because I think fast forward the tape a year from today, if you don't have a tighter relationship with your customer, then you are no longer you're not going to be that magnet that you want to be, because you don't know who to even attract, and they don't know about you. I mean, it's a win-win situation if you do it right. So great tip. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So here's the fun question. What's one thing that most people don't know about you that you feel comfortable sharing?
Oh my gosh. Well, you guys know nothing about me, so I could tell you everything.
I know. Exactly.
Well, I don't know if it's a secret. Can you see over my shoulder? Do you see Mickey Mouse?
Yeah, I can see Mickey back there.
Mickey's in all my life. I'm a Disney fanatic. In fact, my license plate is Disney. So I love all things Disney. I love behind the scenes. I love them. If someone says you want a Mickey Mouse company, I want a Mickey Mouse company. They know how to do that. Talk about making a connection and building fans for life.
Wow.
At high dollar points.
Are you involved in the 50-year deal? I mean, are you going to be going out there, or what? How serious are you going to take this?
I just came back from there not long ago, and my theory was everyone's going to go for the 50 years. So actually, I came back from Disneyland last week. I let everyone go to Florida, and I went to Disneyland. But my cherished things, I have stood in Walt Disney's office, his personal office. It was quite an honor. I've got a picture here on my desk of the archivist who preserved everything when Walt died.
Wow.
He's the preserver of all Disney memories, and he recently passed, and I got to meet him. And for the day we're recording this, guys, yesterday was Mickey Mouse's birthday. So I'm just letting you know that's how
Mickey Mouse has a birthday. See, I'm sorry, I didn't even
I was
know.
at his 90th birthday party, David. I was at his 90th birthday party with his elite friends at Disney World. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Were there cocktails involved at all?
There was a big cake. It was a PG kind of thing. This is Mickey. He doesn't drink.
Come on. All the pressure on that dude, he's got to have an outlet somewhere. So cool. Well, Ginger, so there are people today that are sitting here going, I do want to be, that magnet. I do want to, get more clients, but I want to do it the right way. So if that's you and you're listening, reach out. And, I always tell people it's so easy to click onto the next, podcast. It's so easy to go on to your next, thing and say, oh, that was really great. Put it up on the shelf and don't do anything with it.
Right.
I'd much rather that you take a little step and, Ginger has a gift for you. So why don't you share what that is for anyone listening today?
Well, as you said, knowledge without action is worthless. And and I'm a bad person about this, collect a lot of knowledge, but if we don't put it in place, it does nothing for you. So I
Right.
put a resource together and I've already teased about it. So we talked about building that avatar and how to stand out and going forward. So I put a resource together. So if you go over to my website at gingerbratzel, BRATZEL.com/standout, I have put a template together to take you through that exercise. You can print it out, share it with your team. And we're talking about how to find those best customers, how to clone them. And that's going to help you develop your marketing. And then I've got you some resources about standing out and moving forward in 2022.
Wow, that's awesome. So it's free, you guys. I mean, if you are not comfortable with talking to somebody because you're not sure, you're afraid of what that might get into, I totally get it. So that's why, Ginger's offered this. So gingerbratzel.com/standout, just jump over there and see, it's like nothing. It's like just dipping your toe in the water. It's
Sure.
really, it's a really simple way to see if this might work for you, because I just don't want you to be sitting in a month from today and thinking, man, how do I get more clients? Because we just told you how, and she's given you a resource on how to do that. And it doesn't even cost anything. Normally these are thousands of dollars of value here. And so she's, offering it to us, for no cost. So I know I'm going to get it. I appreciate your sharing that. And so if somebody wants to connect with you and they want Ginger to learn more about you, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Well, I would say go over to the website and has all our contact information. Some people like the email, some people like the phone call. We can start that conversation. Even on that resource, it'll give my contact information. So once you print that out, you'll have all of that. And, we can talk about where you're at and where you want to go. And that's my job, is to fill the gap.
Awesome. Well, and if you see her at Disney, tap her on the shoulder and just say, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So thank you so much, Ginger, for all this information. And I have to say, if you're listening and you don't do anything with it, that's totally cool, but you can't get mad at her or me in a month from now if you're still lagging in sales, if you're still, not at your closure rate, or you're still not at your conversion rate, or you're not the magnet that you want to be. So please jump on the website and grab your free copy of that standout brochure. That information is going to be awesome. And then give her a buzz and let her know that you got it, and let her know, hey, I need your help. I got a glitch in my swing, as Tiger Woods would say. So I need your help. So thank you again so much for hanging out with us, and look forward to learning more about you.
Thanks for sharing this information and even doing this podcast. It's a great topic, David. Thank you.
Absolutely.